pressure. So just one other issue, if I can just mention, the taxi drivers who I've been speaking up for and we've been speaking up for over the last few weeks have suspended their protests over the fixed fare threat from Uber, a threat to undermine their livelihoods and the regulated fare structure in the taxi industry, on foot of an engagement with TDs and with the government in the Dáil. But there's been no clear commitment from the government that they are going to act to either amend or enforce the existing legislation to prevent Uber bringing in these fixed fares and undermining the fixed fare structure and therefore the livelihoods of nearly 20,000 taxi drivers. So the taxi drivers have given the government and the public some breathing space. They don't want to disrupt the public, but there needs to now be action by the government, who so far have done absolutely nothing to protect the livelihoods of taxi drivers and ultimately the consumer. Because if Uber get their way, every single other country they've done this, additional charges ramp up and you get dynamic pricing. That's what happens. So they say they're coming in to cut fares and they make it look like they're going to cut fares at the expense of the taxi driver, but in reality the fares then ratchet up massively everywhere else Uber have got in. So they have to be stopped and the government needs to respond to the calls of the taxi drivers.
Yeah, so on the day that we hear it takes a dual income of up to €150,000 in order to buy a 2-bedroom apartment in this country. And then we hear and we watch a video that the government commissioned. First of all, we need questions asked as to who the hell asked for this video to be made and how much it costs, because these are the parties that bang on about public money. So to watch young people being basically given coping mechanisms for having to live eternally with their parents. That's the young people who have the cheek to insist on staying in the country, it seems. This government has just given up completely on housing anybody, but particularly young people. And I really think what I would say to all those 2/3 of people who are under 35 who are stuck living with their parents or out in the back sheds that the government has also said is okay. We need to revolt. We actually need a housing movement in this country. We need young people getting politically active, as happened, so many times before, that led to change, be it on housing, be it on repeal or other issues, because these two parties, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the independents propping them up, are not going to tackle the vested interests to build public housing and affordable housing. I think the second issue I just want to raise is next week I'm moving the first bill to ban fox hunting in this country, and tomorrow I've booked the AV room to bring in people from rural areas, from farming backgrounds, from animal welfare backgrounds, the NSPCA, we'll have Randall Plunkett from the Dunsany Nature Reserve, and we'll have a number of farmers against fox hunting. And ironically, just before us, I see it's booked out by a pro-fox hunting senator with a whole heap of hunt groups. Now, these hunt groups are invisible when you actually ask for a debate on fox hunting. And I will put it up to journalists as well. There hasn't actually been a debate between myself or any of the other proponents of the bill and these hunt groups, who are propping up this archaic, cruel blood sport, which they're making money out of, it would seem, and that it would seem that the three big parties at the moment, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, haven't indicated that they're going to allow a free vote of their TDs. So I'm asking TDs have a bit of gumption and vote with your conscience. But there was a poll released by Ireland Thinks during the week which showed that 72% of people are opposed to fox hunting, with only 11% in support. So we need to ask, why are the three big parties in the Dáil propping up something that is so little support in society? What is in it? Why are they doing it? And particularly all demographics, rural, urban, men, women, young people, older people, are opposed to this. So questions really need to be put to them about that. And lastly, one of the arguments that's being used by Sinn Féin in particular, it would seem, is that it would drive it underground. How can you drive fox hunting underground? Seriously. It's either, packs of horses or packs of hounds. It's not possible to drive it underground, tally-ho and all of that. So we need to say tally no, and that's what we'll be saying tomorrow. outside here at 10:30 with a press event. And just lastly, if I can briefly mention a very important local issue, but very symptomatic of what's happening around the country, is the imposition of parking charges in Blanchardstown Centre. Now, Blanchardstown Centre has a huge number of civic and public facilities, the council office, theatre, breast check, medical facilities, library, and so on and so forth. It is the centre of Blanchardstown, and the Vulture Fund has bought the centre, and we discover during the week that the Vulture Fund actually owns APCOA, the company that will be fleecing workers and the community. That is very important information that the council didn't seem to either know or question or reveal, and I think this should be overturned when we appeal it tomorrow to An Comisiún Pleanála, because cost of living crisis, but also privatisation of very important community access to community facilities. So.
Richard, can I ask just the Taoiseach was speaking to the media this morning, and that video was brought up, and he strongly defended it by first of all saying, it was put up by Spunit, which is a charity, but he also said we shouldn't give a knee-jerk reaction to this. I mean, he'd probably strongly reject your claims that he'd say the government's doing everything they can.
Look, my son just moved back in with me, and I can tell you, he doesn't need a government video to tell him to do household chores, right? What he wants from the government is some prospect of being able to afford a rental property or to maybe even buy a house at some point in the future, which at the moment most young people feel they have absolutely zero opportunity to do so, and that the government has failed them absolutely diabolically. And the government, we had a Department of Finance report there recently where the Department of Finance is saying there's no end in sight for the current housing crisis, that we're looking at another 15 years. So in that context, this video is just unbelievable. It's just laughable. It's sort of surreal, but of course there's a very serious side to it, because it is a government saying we are not going to be able to solve this crisis, so what you got to do is work out how we don't end up fighting with our parents over doing the dishes and household chores. It's absolutely laughable, and I think it will be seen as such by young people, that this is just further admission that the government doesn't even itself believe it can solve what they describe rightly as the biggest social crisis facing this country. Yeah, it's pathetic.
I'm waiting on the parents' video now as well.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the government gives us coping mechanisms.
Paul, can I ask, one of the proposals that went before Cabinet today was to set up an autism assessment process that would be separate to the assessment of needs in order to reduce the pressure on that assessment of needs. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the details, but I am generally concerned that the government's approach to the crisis in assessment of needs is to effectively, is not to resource doing assessment of needs properly, but instead is to find alternative pathways. We went down the road before of inadequate assessment of needs, and then the result was that a whole cohort had to have their assessment of needs redone because the assessment of needs that was done wasn't appropriate. So again, I'd have to look at the detail, but in general it seems to me there's an approach of downgrading what is given to people and downgrading the law, because they're currently breaking the law in terms of assessment of needs, as opposed to bringing up the standards to what is required in the law and the time frame that is set out in the law.
And what is your party's reaction to a rise in drug intimidation violence after the events over the weekend?
Rise in drug intimidation
and violence.
Yeah, well, I think it speaks to the need to decriminalise, first of all, the whole drug area. This is a health issue, and that's something that's been recommended by all party committees but never acted upon. Leaving young people and families in the hands of criminals this is something been going on for years. We all know people who've been affected, whose sons or daughters or children get into addiction, and then huge pressure is placed on the family. I think the government needs to look at seriously decriminalising now and treat